Welcome back to our discussion, New Approaches to Federal Human Capital, sponsored by Ascendre here on Federal News Network. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. My guest today is Tracy DeMartini. She is the Chief Human Capital Officer at the General Services Administration. And before the break, we were talking about onboarding and the issue of getting people inculcated when they have to do so remotely. But there's another older issue that predates the pandemic. It almost goes back to the 1918 pandemic, and that is how long it takes the federal government to hire people. That one always seems impervious to correction. It's something like 80 days now.
Mhm.
So how do you view that problem? And are there some solutions both from a process design standpoint and maybe a technological standpoint that can start to shave that off?
Oh, again, Tom, fabulous topic. I wish I had my fellow Chicos on so we have many ideas on how to solve this issue. I have to start by saying I think the problem that people perceive is not what the problem actually is. And that is the system itself is not broken. It's actually a victim of our success. And here is why. Back when hiring reform kicked off in 2010, 2011, the purpose was to make it easier to apply for a federal job. And that's great. That intent was noble. And we certainly want to get people with different experiences from different parts of the country applying. Unfortunately, if you make it too easy, the floodgates are open. So for any one job that's posted in the federal government, you could get hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. So at GSA, as an example, from January 1st, 2020 until September 30th, 2020, we posted around 1,300 jobs. And for those job postings, we received over 66,000 applications. So we're hiring fewer than 2% of the people that apply. And so, of course, the other 98% are going to think the system's broken. But it's a volume issue because everyone still wants to work for the federal government. And when we're not relying on people to post knowledge, skills, and abilities essays, and we have very broad requirements, you're going to let in lots of folks, which again, that's okay. We want to have a strong competitive circle, but HR offices aren't equipped to deal with that kind of volume. You know, when we were shrinking the federal government, a lot of the back office operations are the ones that get cut, HR being one of them. So I have a 12,000 person workforce at GSA. I have 300 staff in my HR office. We don't just do hiring. We do labor and employee relations. We administer benefits. We do HR strategy. We assist with payroll because our CFO handles payroll, but we deal with tax deductions. So not all 300 people are doing hiring. So it's a smaller subset to handle 66,000 applications. That is one of the issues. And USA Jobs is often unfairly blamed for this problem, but the system is working. We just need to build in and keep investing in better assessments so the strongest candidates get through, and maybe work on our job descriptions a bit more, because I do still think there is a valid argument that the way we post jobs is okay, but the descriptions themselves still could use a lot of work. We need to implement those plain language rules.
And how
The
does
other, oh, go ahead.
was going to say, how does the idea of hiring people on the basis of skills, more emphasis there than perhaps on some of the knowledges or degrees that they might have? Can that maybe
You
help
know,
down?
there was a recent executive order that said that we did not require college degrees, or it was inferring that we relied too much on that when actually we don't. Only certain occupations require degrees, such as medical doctors. And I don't know about you, Tom, but I do want my doctor to have a medical license.
At least my
Um,
brain surgeon.
Right, right. And you know what we're looking at though are skills. And one of my favorite examples are cybersecurity and technology. We can't compete with the private sector. You know, we cannot pay those wages. So if someone is graduating from college and they get a job offer from GSA or a job offer from Google, I guarantee you they're going to go to Google. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point in their career, they may not want to come into the government. And that's why agencies like GSA do try and get creative. We have a wonderful program at GSA called the Technology Transformation Service, which allows people that are in the private sector to come spend a year or two with us to bring their corporate knowledge into government. But that's not going to be at the entry level. That's going to be more senior people. But there are some trade-offs that we have to understand people are going to make. And if I could just, go back to my earlier example about what we've done in the government to basically harm ourselves. We talk about the recruitment issue and about not being able to attract the right people. Well, everyone needs to remember we've had quite a few pay freezes over the past decade. So we have not kept pace with the pay market in across the world and across the United States. That has had an unfortunate consequence. That's also why we lose people. We've also seen our benefits, which are a wonderful thing to attract people into federal service, but they're expensive. People don't often think about the contributions they make. So for our new employees in government, they're contributing 4% of their salary, over 4% to their own retirement. Plus, they're paying a hefty fee for their benefits. Plus, they're not making really fair market wages. So it's going to be a difficult choice for some people to make. And unfortunately, some of them choose to go to the private sector.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be a perennial issue and always subject to debate, and hopefully some major reform might happen to kind of reset all this. It's been quite a few decades since, but I want to get back to one issue on you mentioned on the volume of resumes that come in, volume of people that apply. Many years ago, there was a trend I read about toward machine reading of resumes to kind of screen people, which
Mhm.
seemed kind of a crude way to screen out people, and I'm not sure that ever really caught on. But are there artificial intelligence or any kind of technological approaches that can, in a fair way, in a way that gets you the people you really want, speed up that whole sifting through the volume, and then therefore people won't be waiting so many months?
So the answer there is a firm maybe. We are certainly looking at ways to increase the use of AI, but we also have to pay attention to merit system principles and certain obligations that we have to make sure we're not overlooking people that have extra what we call preference to come into service. I'm thinking specifically of our veterans. We need to make sure that we're properly applying the rules and regulations in Title V to make sure that people that deserve to be on those certificates are there. And this also goes back to the issue of making sure we're clearly articulating what are the skills that we need. Because if we don't say that up front, people know how to answer the questions on USA jobs. Everyone's an expert. So you still need to have that human HR specialist comparing the resume to the answers. And when you have a volume of 66,000 resumes, that's going to take some time.
And what about the idea of people that apply that may not be right for this particular job? Is there a fast and efficient way of retaining them, perhaps, so that you can have a pre-staged almost pipeline for when some other more appropriate job opens up?
So OPM is actually, they're doing some really innovative stuff. And I have to say, I did work at OPM at one point in my career, and I am so angry at the rap that they get because I think they do an amazing job with very limited resources. And one of the things that they are doing is looking at a way to create certificates for certain occupations. So one that we're piloting now is looking at data analysts. That is a new and emerging skill in government. So we're finding out ways to hire for those jobs, and say I'm hiring for one at GSA and I get a certificate with 100 talented data analysts. Instead of hiring one and throwing out the other 99, I am now able to share those other 99 applicants with my colleagues in other agencies that have jobs at the similar grade and similar description. This is something HR has wanted to do forever, and it is complicated because many of us have our own HR systems that don't talk to each other. And OPM really took a lead on trying to pull this pilot off, and I'm excited to see what the results will be.
Interesting. Well, I think if GSA can move, say, contract price negotiations to the task order level and get them out of contract award level, anything is possible here
There we go.
under the sun.
Yes.
And just in the time we have remaining, talk about the HR function itself, the CHCO, the Chief Human Capital Officer, Chief Learning Officer, the ancillary jobs. Just give us a brief overview of how that's all changing and trying to keep up with the times.
So I think one of the best jobs you can have in government is to be a Chico or a CLO because we are involved in every decision that impacts the government because we're dealing with our people. I also think that it is absolutely imperative for Chicos to form a united front with their CFOs and their CIOs because those are the tasks that I say, people think they're the less sexy jobs. They are what get the business of government done. And when you have a Chico, a CFO, and a CIO that are a united front and know how to move mountains to get people the supplies they need, to get people the technology they need and the workforce that they need, that agency is going to be successful. And I'm incredibly lucky. I've worked with some fabulous CIOs and CFOs. The Chicos are fighting for their place at the table because unfortunately everyone's afraid of money and they're afraid of IT, but everyone thinks they can do HR until they try to and they get sued. Then they realize, never mind. But Chicos are the heartbeat of any agency. And I'm really, really looking forward to the day where everyone embraces that, because definitely the agencies that invest in their people and invest in their Chico, they are the ones that are going to blow their results out of the water.
All right. Sounds like maybe a new TV pilot show, Better Call Tracy. And
Better call the Chico.
all
Yes.
right. On that note, we'll take a pause here. My guest is Tracy DeMartini. She's the Chief Human Capital Officer at the General Services Administration. Next, we'll be joined by Jerry Buchholz, Strategic Advisor at Ascendre and former Chief Human Capital Officer at NASA. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This discussion is New Approaches to Federal Human Capital, sponsored by Ascendre here on Federal News Network.